Good morning, everyone. It is 8:33. I will call this meeting to order. I believe we have a few excused absences, Director Cicernos and Wells, and any others.
Brooke Osterman.
Brooke Osterman, right. Am I missing anyone else? Oh, Director Uchendo. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the excused absences?
So,
All those in favor?
aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Any conflicts of interest with the agenda items? All right, seeing none. Any public comment on agenda items? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to minutes approval. Do I have a motion for approval of minutes from our February 26, 2025 meeting?
So moved. Support.
Any discussion, edits, or updates? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, our next item is interim financial statements as of February 28, 2025. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Support.
All right, good morning, Tricia.
Good morning. The statements as of the end of February are included in your packet. You can see on the balance sheet, we're in a good cash position even this far into the year, holding just over $17 million in cash. On the income statement, Statement B, we are about 51% of the way through the budget when combining both funds. That would be about almost 73% through in the operating fund and just a little over 8% in the local Brownfield revolving fund. The activity in February is on Statement C, and you can see we did pay out some development project grants and some ESA grants out of the LBRF fund, so that's good, and paid out a few developer reimbursements out of the operating fund in February. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any, but pretty much everything was simple and routine this month.
So, excuse me, I just want to, commend the team again for just, doing a great job and making this portion of it really easy on the board, and particularly the treasurer. My one question is on Statement B1. I wondered if the group would see any value to adding an additional column on the right there that tells us the remaining years of reimbursement on each project.
That could certainly it would be an estimate, obviously, because if tax increment increase, it could be less years than that, but certainly we could add a column for estimate if the board find that valuable.
So maybe just something for a discussion another time. Maybe if it's too much work or if it's going to be too inaccurate, then maybe it doesn't make sense. But
and I think, Sarah, I would like to maybe have a conversation with Christian about that.
Yes.
I don't think it would be too difficult, and he has all that information. It would just be pulling it from his files and into the financials. But as to how accurate it is, that I'm not sure. He's in a training.
Yes, I love that idea about asking him, just for context. So we can certainly circle back. I like the idea as well. Thanks.
thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Trish.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the financial statements. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to our action items. The first is a resolution approving a work plan and approving and authorizing execution of a development and reimbursement agreement for the Adobe Fulton LLC project located at 617 Fulton Street West and 17 Seward Avenue Northwest. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Support.
Kenzie?
Good morning. How's everybody doing?
Doing well, thank you.
So this is really the final step for this project. You guys have seen this come through a couple of different times. So it's really the finalization of the work plan, Act 381 work plan, and then the approval to execute a development and reimbursement agreement, which then would lead us to send this over to the MEDC, who they would be working with the state on this particular project. But just as a quick reminder, you'll see the renderings that are on the presentation, but it's demolition of existing properties on 617 Fulton Street West and 17 Seward Avenue Northwest, and then construction of a new 4-story mixed-use structure. $25 million total project costs, 20.6 of those in hard construction, and then they are requesting about $3,009,576 in eligible activities to be reimbursed. They are anticipating construction start in the spring of 2025, so they're ready to move. Again, that will be dependent upon when the state approves that formally, and then they would anticipate project completion spring or summer of 26. So they would be moving quickly. I'm happy to take any questions about this one in particular, but this is the final stamp for this one locally.
Any questions on this one?
I don't know if I noticed this before or not, but you have 53 parking spaces for over 100 apartments, plus commercial. Is there other parking around there that can subsidize for that?
I believe there is, but Lynn, I'm happy to follow up with the development team on that one. I don't have the answer off the top of my head. I believe that there is parking surrounding it as well.
By Seward? I think there is.
Yeah, I believe
There's a
so.
city lot about a block away.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't, it's not going to change the project.
Sure.
The answer's not going to change
Yeah.
it, so it doesn't matter. I
Yeah.
just was a little curious about that because it's not a lot of parking
Right.
for a mixed use.
Sure.
But-
Just one other thing to add there, they were eligible for the 15-year NEZ because of the investment criteria around just adding more mobility options. So I think that was purposeful, and there's a plan, but we can follow up more intentionally on what that is.
No, that's fine.
Okay,
I just, because I'm sure we've talked about it before, it just struck me. It just kind of jumped out at me
Sure.
this time. So you're good. Thank you. But I forgot about the mobility.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, we have a motion on the table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, our next action item is approval of an amendment to the FY 2025 Environmental Site Assessment Grant application and approval for the 443 Sheldon project. Do I have a motion?
So moved?
Support.
Kenzie?
All right, so this is a request for a project located at 443 Sheldon Avenue Southeast. This is actually a land bank lot that the development team was able to garner an option for. So that process has moved through. In addition to that, there was a formal approval of an environmental site assessment grant application valued at $18,800. And given the frozen ground in February and some of the additional materials that they needed to use in order to do some of the supplemental vapor investigation, that cost increase went up about $1,200. So the development team's request and staff's recommendation would be to increase their existing grant agreement from $18,800 to $20,000, an even $20,000 to cover that additional expense for vapor mitigation. Happy to take any questions about this one if you guys have any.
Seems like a reasonable request. I think too, in our meeting to prep for this meeting, we did have a little discussion with staff regarding, giving some thought to administrative authority approval of a certain threshold. We obviously want to stay informed of all these great projects and the progress that they're making, but I think this is a good example of an opportunity where we might just be able to have staff sign off on this and report out, end of the month or something, so.
What would we need to do to change something from it coming to us and taking the month to get here and all of that thing? To go ahead.
Yeah, so somebody would need to make a resolution to officially delegate the ability to staff to do that, and you would want to set parameters, so whether it's below a certain monetary threshold
Right.
or something like that. So it would be the form of a board action to delegate that authority.
So we could make something like that up in between meetings, bring it back, vote on it?
Correct.
Okay,
Discuss the threshold and the parameters, et
Right.
cetera.
okay, thank you.
Can I have some clarity on that? I'm sorry, explain that to me. Can you explain that to me again?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Good morning. So from time to time, it does make sense to delegate things to staff, but you have to make sure the whole board is comfortable doing that, right? So, and there are other boards and commissions that certainly do this. You should discuss sort of a monetary threshold under which you are comfortable and certain parameters or criteria that you're comfortable letting staff apply and then just report to you rather than having it come to you always as a board action item prior to approval. And this is really just for efficiency's sake. So depending on how much time you think these items actually take, it's either worth it to delegate it or it's not.
And are we speaking for the Brownfield here, or are we discussing land bank?
So here you can
Brownfield.
only speak to Brownfield.
Okay,
Right.
all right. I think when we brought in that land bank discussion, I understand that's going to cross over on occasion, but
Okay.
I think that's where I needed the clarity.
Okay, yep, that would be the Land Bank Authority Board or committee. I'm not sure where that stands.
Right.
Would have to vote to do something similar.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for that.
Yeah, I think even more specifically, just considering the site assessment program, and I think it's still appropriate for the initial application to come to us to review project background, qualifications. But I think once the project's been approved, the initial request, instances like this where there's just some unforeseens, I feel like we can just delegate that to staff. If everyone's comfortable with that, we can work out some language between now and next time we meet, so.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
I do too.
Okay.
My other comment to you is that I would never want to make a decision like this for the land bank, because it's obvious we're not going to follow through with it. And I think it's, given, it's the other board's responsibility to do that and do it the way they want to have it.
Sure. Okay, thanks.
Okay, so we have a motion on the approval of the site assessment grant increase. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, our next item is a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a local Brownfield revolving fund grant agreement with Habitat for Humanity Kent County for a housing development project located at 48 Home Street Southwest. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Kenzie?
All right. So we are excited to bring this project forward. The development team is Habitat for Humanity of Kent County, and they are working in partnership with Allen Edwin Homes. As you can see here, an example of an infill development that would happen at this vacant lot located at 48 Home Street. This particular project would be building a single-family residence and then sold to a family making 80% area median income of Kent within Kent County. Total project cost $250,000. Hard construction of that is about $237,000. The development team is requesting $50,000 in support from the LBRF fund, really to support housing development activities related to this particular site. And obviously, you know, home ownership is a priority of our LBRF funding, and so we really wanted to bring this forward as more of a pilot example of how a development team might be able to utilize our LBRF funding for those that may not necessarily utilize the housing TIF program, for an example, with a one unit project. So Andrew Clordy from Habitat for Humanity and Tegan Wirtz are both here that can share a little bit more about the project and answer any questions that you guys might have. So I'll invite them up to share a few words.
Thank you all. Yeah, I think Mackenzie kind of laid out the project and what we're trying to do here with the grant. This is kind of a capacity opportunity for Habitat Kent. So our team is able to build 10 to 12 homes per year. So the partnership with Allen Edwin allows us to do more in the region. Going forward, I think we would look at utilizing Brownfield TIF for these types of projects, but given the scale, it doesn't make sense to do all the administrative work of a TIF plan and that work for a single home. So that's why we're here today asking for a grant instead. The home would be sold to a buyer below 80% area median income, which for us is typically selling around $190,000 to $220,000 sales price. And that buyer qualifying income is typically in the range of $55,000 to $90,000. Any questions about this?
Any questions for Andrew?
No. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's great.
One question for staff. This was just an infill property? It wasn't the land bank?
That is correct.
So
It's not the land bank,
Okay.
correct.
Thanks.
Any other discussion? All right. All right, we have a motion on the table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, our next item is an emerging developer grant for a project located at 1356 Kalamazoo Avenue Southeast. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Mackenzie?
All right, so this is a really fun project bringing to you guys here from the Third Ward. As Commissioner Edwards, Board Member Edwards shared, it's at 1356 Kalamazoo Avenue Southeast. And the plan for this development is to construct a new 4-story mixed-use building with ground floor commercial space and 27 apartment units on the upper floors. And as you can see here, right, it's right on the corner of Kalamazoo. And here's just a brief rendering too of what the anticipated project is looking like. The development is intended to be Energy Star certified, which is really great and exciting. And the development team, S&B Impact Group LLC, I will share a little bit more here in a second when I introduce them, but we're really excited from an emerging developer standpoint to bring this team in front of you to request emerging developer support. And so the coverage for that grant would cover things that are listed here, right? Schematic design, environmental assessments on the site, geotechnical analysis, so engineering, survey and site plan, and then additional, some pre-construction consulting as the development team is partnering with Sella Building Company, who has been before you a few different times with other projects. So we're excited to see them, partnering with others in the community. Total project costs are about $7.9 million and total hard construction costs about $6.2 million. And another great piece of this particular project is their total MBE, WBE, and MLBE participation goals are north of 50%. There's a typo on there, excuse that. It's about 58%, so about $3.9 million of total hard construction costs. So that's a great goal that we're really excited to see from an inclusion plan standpoint. And then in the future, they are intending to pursue NEZ and Brownfield TIF on this project. So we'll be excited to see that one come down the the process later. But this particular emerging developer grant is really to kind of get a lot of those pre-development expenses covered. So I'm excited to introduce to you former Commissioner Goey, and then Salim Usmani and Peter Scornia from Sala Building Company. They are all here just in support of the development, and happy to share a few words about it or answer any questions that you might have. But I'd like to turn it over to that team to share a few words.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I think we're going to let Peter talk about the construction aspect of it, and then Bing and I can share about what our thought process is when we got involved in this development project.
Good morning, Peter Scornia. I would also like to introduce Isaac Norris. Isaac is the architect, very excited about the project. For similar projects that we've done recently, this would be an all-electric building. We feel these are less expensive to operate for the tenants and present a healthier living environment, not having natural gas in the kitchens and such. I think it's a great location. Let's see, and
Can you tell me what the cross street is? It's Kalamazoo and
Adams.
Adams.
Yeah, currently a vacant lot, and we've gone through a phase one and now getting ready to proceed with that. And that's what these funds would be used for, to figure out the rest of the site analysis and make sure that it's, that this will work on that site.
Great. Bing, you want to say something? Or I can...
Sure.
Yeah. I'll let him talk first.
It's kind of fun being on this side of the dais. So, good morning, Chair Edwards and Commissioner Yasasi, distinguished members of the committee. As you've been introduced, my name is Ben Goy, and it is a privilege to present our current project that's currently known as 1356 Kalamazoo. But when it is finished, it is our goal to have this building named after an African-American woman leader in the 3rd Ward or in the city of Grand Rapids. It's important for us, and our vision is that we begin to identify the contributions of many of our African-American leaders in this community. The vision for this particular project is a vision that I felt was needed as we continue to bring new vibrancy in our economy in the 3rd Ward. We have been struggling in the 3rd Ward. We know the history of disinvestments in the 3rd Ward, and I think that this city has made a commitment and to begin to find ways to identify new innovative ways to bring small developers into the 3rd Ward, allowing for individuals who live in the 3rd Ward who have some smaller properties to be able to create generational wealth for themselves. Our team is currently working with others. You approved a emerging developers grant for the property on MLK Drive and Neeland about a month ago or so, I think. And I met her when I was then sitting as the city commissioner, and we have also other properties and other property owners who we are going to bring forward to you at some point in time so that they can build their generational wealth with the smaller properties that they own themselves. So we're excited to present you this particular project. And I want to thank Director Sarah and her staff, and Mackenzie, Director Kirsten from the Planning Commission. The City of Grand Rapids has been very, very helpful for us as we begin this thing. Peter certainly knows his work. Isaac certainly knows his work. I'm a florist. I have no idea what the work's supposed to do. I'll bring flowers to the opening. That's about all I can tell you. But we're really excited, and I think that this is something that I hope we can duplicate many, many times over in the 3rd Ward. Thank you.
Thank you, Bing. One thing I want to say, I've known Bing for about 20 years now, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't him that brought me into this project. I have projects in different cities. This will be the first time getting into Grand Rapids. I live in Holland, which I don't consider that far. I consider it the same neighborhood to me. The main reason that I'm into this project and working with Bing is because not because he shared, this is the project, this is the money involved, this is what will come out of it, this is how you'll make, but more importantly, how it will help the community. And that's what really got to me. And we want to make sure that community benefits from this project, not only from the building. This is something that we've done in different cities. I've been part of this. So the community, the building obviously will provide the commercial space that the neighborhood needs and the apartments that will be there for them. But in addition to that, we have a program that I don't have the numbers yet, but we're offering the investment and ownership opportunities to the neighborhood. And we will work with the neighborhood, some of them are here, and work that out and how we will work together. But it would be upward of like 10% investment for people. And then they will have an opportunity as well to buy into the ownership as well. So that was kind of important to me, that we maximize what we can do for the community with this project. Any questions?
Do you have a timeline?
So I was told that if everything works as we have planned, we will start construction in July, August timeframe.
This year?
And this year, correct. And should be done within a year or so.
Wow.
So by 26 in summer, we should have the building up and running.
And will these be market rate apartments or?
I will make sure that it's not. We're not calling it affordable housing, but that's one of my goals. And I've shared this. It's not just I'm saying it here. I've shared it with the team and some of the neighborhood folks that we will make sure that it is below market rate. And we will make sure the commercial space is leased to the businesses that serve the community, not just whoever comes with the most money. So. Thank you.
That's a good point about the commercial space. I think right now I've been working with Ferris State University. One of the needs that we have found and heard about that would help that neighborhood and the third ward is having someone there who is a dentist or an optometrist. So I've been working with Ferris State University because they have a great program for optometry, and so I've already been in conversation with someone who knows of a graduate who's currently not in Grand Rapids, but is currently interested in coming to Grand Rapids, is practicing in Cleveland currently. He also happens to be African American, so we're trying to target those individuals to be able to come into our community and to provide the services that this community needs. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your vision and follow through on this and the creativity that you're bringing into how this gets done. So obviously what you're doing also builds confidence in others to repeat these types of projects. So thank you, and best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, our last action item is approval of invoices documenting eligible activities for W&S Development Partners LLC redevelopment project at 415 Sheldon Avenue Southeast. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Kenzie?
All right. So this is the last and final agenda item from me. Typically, this would be Christian up here sharing, because this is really the back end of a project and the work that gets done by Christian specifically. But really, this is, requesting us to approve the invoices that have been documented for eligible expenses on this project. And so, as you can see here, the eligible brownfield costs of $1,153,841 have been, that information has been provided to staff staff, and that includes environmental activities, demolition, site preparation, and then infrastructure improvements. And then just as a reminder here, right, this is a project that I'm really excited to see this one come to fruition. I worked with Peter and his team when I was at the MEDC when they were first getting this off the ground, so it's really fun to see this one all ready to go. And this is a project that has created 2 new buildings that have created apartments over about 43,000 square feet. And we are really just wanted to highlight a couple of photos here too, just that highlight kind of what has happened inside the project. So wanted to share a few of those. And then if you guys had any specific questions around the request here, Peter Scornia from Sella Building Company is here to answer any questions specific to the project.
Mackenzie, do you know, just offhand, what was the original amount of tax capture that was approved?
Oh, goodness. That's a great question that I'm happy to circle back with you on that one. I don't have that, unless, do you happen to know off the top of your head?
I don't know the exact dollar amount, but it was,
No
it
worries.
was approximately 1.3 million.
Okay.
So luckily, our cost came in a little lower.
I must have missed that, sorry.
Thank you. Let's see if there's any more. No, that was the last one.
Beautiful.
Any comments on lease up?
It's going a little slow, but spring is coming, and we've had a lot more interest over the last 4 to 5 weeks than we had over the winter. We finished the projects late last summer, early fall, and we're 30%, I think, overall occupied right now on the residential spaces. Nothing yet on the commercial spaces.
Thank you. I didn't intend to put you on the spot, but
Oh, no, no,
and
that's
your
fine.
comment is consistent with what I'm hearing from others.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, heavy on everyone's mind, but we're excited about the spring coming. And
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, we have a motion on the table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Peter.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item is other business. Mr. Treasurer.
Just an open-ended question posed to the group. To the extent that we see a project similar to Abode and now this one after the initial approval, would it be, is there value to getting a short report on MLB, let's see, WB, MLB, and MLBE progress for each of these projects as they come through? Just commitments from, for example, if it's a project that is to be built, we would ask the developer, have you signed any, subs that meet these requirements? And at the end, we would just measure it, the actual numbers as well.
If I'm not mistaken, and Mackenzie, you may be able to shed some light on this, if I'm not mistaken, when the developer applicant submits their final package of backup and support for a similar approval, I believe they're required to include where they landed with.
Yes.
With those.
That is correct. Yeah. So Christian is really the staff member that follows up on that particular data point. And so I'm sure he'd be able to share that specific to the projects.
Okay, let me clarify. I'm sorry. This would be an additional ask of the developer to provide that information each time they come in for an amendment or any sort of action by the board. I'm sorry.
If I may, just so page 99 of the packet highlights 415 Sheldon, which we just looked at. It addresses the TIF ask chair, and then also shows you the inclusion plan participation of 14% as an outcome. So I think that is tracking, but we can triple check from Christian that is right. That's an outcome. But I was wondering if, sorry.
So my question,
Or
I wrote a note here before we saw the finished project.
Right.
It's more aimed at, this was the second time that we've seen the Abode project, right?
I'm sorry.
And
Yes,
so
okay.
we saw that one a couple of months ago, and so we would just ask Construction Simplified, hey, since we saw you last, have you made any progress toward that?
I'm tracking.
You know?
Okay.
All right.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I think,
More of an interim.
Interim, yes.
Got it.
yeah, more
Okay.
of like the buyout, right? Like their process of buying out subcontractors.
Indeed, yes, yes.
Like in real
So-
time. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. Any other business to discuss here, or we think it's zoned out?
There's one more thing that I would like to, in the past, and this is going back to the earlier days on the Brownfield Authority, we were able to take a look at some of, so for instance, today, a couple of these projects, I have the question of, especially this last one, what sort of contaminants are there? And this is the Brownfield, and I know we are using this tool, which is great. I support that 100%. But I'm still would like to reflect on understanding what's in the ground on these properties. Dating back not quite 10 years, we did have a project, and I'm not sure it even came through Brownfield. I can't remember dating back to that, but where there was an issue with PERC. And we had a huge vapor problem in that building, and there was exposure. And I'm just curious, and I understand that's a responsibility at the state level with environmental agencies, but if we could get back to a little bit of touching on that in these discussions with the projects.
Sure. What project are you highlighting?
The one on Kalamazoo, actually.
Sure. I mean, so, yes, I think we certainly can do that. On that one in particular, for me, I mean, I feel like that's part of the pursuit with the grant,
Sure,
right?
right,
Is
right. Yep.
Figuring out what's
Absolutely.
an environmental assessment.
Sure.
So, our emerging developer grant that will include evaluation of ESA.
Sure, yes.
But I hear you.
Yeah,
And we
yeah.
can certainly touch that depending on where the projects are in the development process.
Right, okay.
I mean, we're asking it as part of the application packet, so.
Sure. And I know that, that is in the past that creates the Brownfield, right? It's the Part 201 program, and
Sure.
that is kind of the basis of this program. So I just would be curious to kind of get back to that and take a look at, I think it's great for us to recognize some of the cleanup opportunities that come alongside with these projects. We can see these great developments, but in the ground, there's a lot of progress being done with brownfield projects. And I think that's a really good way to discuss this and to support this program, is to understand what we're actually cleaning up there.
Yeah, great question. Just for broader awareness, I feel like, right, the Act 381 Brownfield Redevelopment Financing Act amended 381 to add housing as a qualification. So in all cases, it might not be contamination, right? It might be other qualifiers, but
Right.
certainly we can touch on how a project's qualifying.
Sure. And I support that. But in some cases, when we know that there is going
Sure.
to be additional sampling, I would just be curious to know what that sampling is, what the results would be, just so we can, that's another way to measure our success with the program.
Sure. Thank you.
So also perhaps with the closeout, right, like this last action item that we had, if there's a bit of a summary on what was accomplished in terms of remediation or at least just identifying and
Sure, I mean, I don't want
working through it, or-
to, and I don't want to create more work for the developer or the staff necessarily, but I know that as these things are going, it would be, a helpful, whether it's in the presentation from staff or from the applicant, that we can look at that.
Great, appreciate that. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, our next item, public comment. Okay, hearing none, we will adjourn. Thank you so much. All right, this is our Grand Rapids Land Bank Authority meeting. I call it to order. Time is 9:21. Excused absences. We have Director Osterman, Cicernos, Suchendu, and drawing a blank.
Lynn. Yeah, Lynn.
Lene, Director Wells, yep. Okay, we need a motion for that.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, any public comment on agenda items? Hearing none. Move on to minutes approval. Approval of minutes from our January 22nd, 2025 meeting. Do I have a motion?
Support.
Any discussion, comments, edits? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, our first action item is approval of an E-Properties Plus contract. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Support.
Take it away, Doug.
Before
sorry.
Doug gets started, sorry to interrupt, I just wanted to offer Commissioner Yasasi and just maybe a reflection on the March 11th City Commission meeting, and maybe that happens later, maybe it happens now. I just wanted to ask and propose some thoughts myself. So
Sure.
I don't mean to put you on the spot. I feel
That's
like it's
okay.
important to follow up from commission.
Sure. Yeah. Do we want to take this item though, since we have it on the floor, and then go to that?
Okay, perfect.
Is that helpful, colleagues?
Yeah.
So it's been moved and supported. Sorry, Doug.
You're fine. All right, so good morning, board. I am before you today presenting multiple things, but the first is going to be the eProperties Plus contract. eProperties is a software program that is going to, it's really specifically designed for land banks, but it is going to be what we use as our property clearinghouse to publicly list and sell, maintain all of our properties here in the land bank. I did quite a bit of research looking into our existing system of Salesforce and what the maps function could do with that. As well as a few others, and eProperties is truly what I recommend as the best system to move forward for our land bank. It's going to have the ability to provide real-time updates every day if necessary. Our property maintenance contractors will actually be able to track what they're doing right directly in this, so we can also see that with before and after photos of all maintenance and any issues that may arise. This is going to be a one-time upfront cost of $16,100, and then there will be ongoing subscription costs. Sorry, I'm only one cup of coffee down, but this is something that they said they can have it really turned around pretty quickly, and so we have a go live date goal of April 15th, which I spoke with them yesterday. It won't be a problem because I am itching to go on this. So if there's any questions, happy to take them.
Quick question. Excuse me, so I kind of played around in eProperties a little bit. Is there another community that maybe we can look at ourselves so we have an idea of how it will look here?
Yeah, so actually our land bank properties have always been listed on eProperties. The state land bank utilizes them.
Okay.
Because they are so large, they kind of use it as an asset management system rather than a real estate system like what we are going to. But Calhoun, Kalamazoo, Ingham, a lot of the land banks in our state use them.
Okay.
We're currently onboarding the city of Milwaukee's land bank right now. They are used across the country by multiple land banks.
Great, okay, thank you.
Question. Any other questions for Doug on this? All right, thank you, Doug. Okay, we have a motion to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Commissioner Sassier, I'm wondering if your update could be shared perhaps during the discussion for item 3.
Sure.
Does
I'm fine with
that seems like a good spot for
Thank
that.
you.
So, okay. Okay, our next action item is the sale of 1125 Alpine Avenue Northwest. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Doug?
Thank you again. So today we're bringing before you a resolution requesting approval of our inaugural property sale to the Westtown Jubilee Housing Incorporated nonprofit for the project proposed here at 1125 Alpine Avenue Northwest. This property was previously optioned with the State Land Bank and was a part of that February 1st property conveyance transfer. Westtown began this process of acquiring this specific property actually in late 2023 and early 2024. They submitted all required documents for review and approvals previously to Jess, and the option agreement was approved and entered on February 24th, 2024. The organization is planning to build a single-family home to be sold to individuals at or below the 80% AMI, and that's going to equal out to roughly $64,000 a year for a family of two, $72,000 for a family of three, and a roughly $80,500 for a family of four. The plans are to build a two-story, three-bedroom house on the lot. This project is located in the West Grand neighborhood, and the scope for this project includes construction of a new 1,450 square foot, two-story residential home. And the total project investment is estimated to be around $200,000. We are anticipating attaching a developer agreement onto this sale to hold them to everything that they're saying. And, I do have Jeff Redevelopment, the Executive Director for Westtown Jubilee Incorporated here to share a little bit more about the organization and this specific project. So, Mr. Redevelopment.
Good morning.
Morning.
Like Doug said, my name is Jeff. I'm the Executive Director at Westtown Jubilee Housing. We were founded in 1991 to address and provide affordable housing, primarily on the west side of Grand Rapids. This current project will be our 55th project since then. We're very excited about the opportunity to get this property and to build the home that Doug described. We use a lot of volunteer help, and we partner with churches and other organizations to help keep the costs affordable, and as everybody knows nowadays is not affordable in a lot of cases. So yeah, if anybody has any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the review. Could you talk a little bit about, you said this would be the 55th project. What does that process look like for the homeowner, to kind of vet individuals? And do you already have somebody that has gone through, presumably your standard operating processes to be able to purchase?
We don't currently have, we call them homesteaders. We currently don't have a homesteader yet. Usually there's such a demand for affordable housing that we kind of wait until we kind of get going on the project. So we try to partner with local organizations that we already have relationships with, like the Other Way Ministries or Servage Church or, a bunch of other ones, so that they can maybe qualify families they're already currently working with to get started. And then as part of our process, we send them to historically has been ICCF to go through their introduction to home ownership course and meet with their credit counselors. And they are required to provide some sweat equity in the home as well. And then we either sell it to them on a land contract, depending on what their credit issues are that they have to address, or if they're able to go to the bank and get a mortgage, then we can sell it to them outright. But the plan is to keep this property affordable for at least 5 years.
Do you guys ever work with, for lack of a better word, alternative lenders like a op fund for single-family mortgages or anything like that?
We have a relationship with Mercantile Bank.
Okay.
And I know that as part of their mortgage process that they have access to HOP funds and different kinds of down payment assistances and stuff like that.
Great. Thank you. I just wasn't as familiar with your organization and processes, so thanks for overviewing that.
Yeah, no problem. Anybody else?
All right, it's a great project.
Yeah, we're excited.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, we have a motion on the table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, our next action item is passage of the Grand Rapids Land Bank Authority disposition policy. Do I have a motion? Doug, before you get started, so again, I had an opportunity to meet with staff to prep for our meeting, and just to set the tone a little bit, I believe the intent here really is to just have some written operational procedure process in place that our team can actually abide by, regardless of where we find ourselves as a board, some months down the road. So I guess with that in mind, Doug, if you'd like to expand on it a little bit.
Absolutely. All right, so what led us here today? I'll be the one presenting. I've been building this disposition policy for some time. So just a brief history, really for those watching. The intergovernmental agreement was initially passed by the City Commission in October and went into effect in November of 2024. As you all know, at the inaugural meeting in December, the Articles of Incorporation and the bylaws were passed. And thankfully, through your diligent work, our subcommittee meetings went throughout January to really edit and clarify that bylaw document and solidify it so that they were passed as amended in January of 2025. February 1st, we had the properties as well as some options transferred over to the land bank, which provided us the inventory that we currently have. So when we first initially presented the land bank to the City Commission last September, we proposed the mission to be to create a positive economic outcomes in the city by acting as a conduit to ensure quality land management of vacant, abandoned, foreclosed, blighted, or otherwise unproductive real property to support the best and highest use in cooperation with private organizations. Part of these values and philosophies are really to embed and promote equity. Equity is also one of the City of Grand Rapids' core values and a key factor in our strategic plan. Ultimately, the disposition policy, we're hoping to find create this tool to have a meaningful and useful tool to maximize these properties back to use. We feel that we have a responsibility to our community to both engage and educate regarding what a land bank is and the tools that are going to be available to them, as well as ultimately, we're trying to build more housing. Part of this disposition policy is really aimed at supporting and promoting some of our aligned programs, including the recently released Site Ready plans with the partnership of the MEDC, our Emerging Developers Program, and the cohort that is currently taking place with the Urban League, as well as the increase of the inclusion plan and WBEs, MBEs, and MLBs. Ultimately, looking at best practices around the state and around national land banks, we're hoping that there's going to be some harm reduction through addressing gentrification. The majority of our lots are in the 3rd Ward, and so, we're trying to find culturally and regionally responsive approaches, as well as there is the ongoing development of an anti-displacement policy. So looking at 10,000 feet up, looking at the land bank and who is involved within this, the relationships that we have. Of course, we have all of you. Appointed members providing your time and expertise here, as well as in partnership with the mayor and the city commission. And then, of course, there's the staff liaisons that are working diligently throughout the city, including, of course, those of us in the economic development department, but we've also had a lot of conversations with planning, the assessor, and of course, fiscal services and our treasurer as we've continued to build this infrastructure. We have been hearing a lot from residents, at least I have been hearing a lot from residents. Every time the land bank is brought up in the media, my phone goes off and I have lots of questions. And as I said, most of our properties are in the 3rd Ward, with the second most being in the 1st Ward. The 2nd Ward has a few, but most of those are side lots or not buildable. Looking at the community partners throughout the region, we're really hoping that this is going to be a tool to use regarding some of our neighborhood associations, the SIDS, the CIAs, some of our business associations, and of course there's the ongoing interest from real estate entrepreneurs. We have a lot of connectors in the community that utilize many of our other incentive programs and help build the tools and awareness that is necessary in the community, including many of our nonprofits, such as Westtown. Housing organizations, we have the Construction Allies in Action that is going to help hopefully further some of our inclusion plan and goals. And then there's the financial institutions in the area that I'm hoping will be able to build some bridges and help create some inroads for people. So the current reality is that Grand Rapids is the first city land bank in Michigan. Detroit has a land bank, but they are the largest in the nation. They are not a model. We want one of these goals to really help us become a model for these other cities that are watching us to utilize land bank tools to really activate more housing. Housing is a crisis across our country. And so we're hoping that we're going to help chart that path and really show how we can utilize land bank and the tools within to activate this housing. Right now, our team has been leaning on the City of Grand Rapids policies, 963, which is the disposition of city property. As I said, every time the land bank is brought up in the media, my phone goes off. I get lots of emails asking who can buy properties, what properties are there, where are they, when can I have access to this, and why aren't you responding to me? Right now, within 963, we do not have a clear path to approach the disposing of current land bank lots intentionally. As the commission and mayor have talked about the land bank, they talk about the need to build this with intention, and our current policy just does not have that. There is a lot of red tape that does not make sense for land bank properties. And there is also a huge gap in community engagement within our current policy. As the city continues to grow this and build the tools, we really want to ensure that the community is aware of what they are and build that engagement directly into it. As well as, we have some staff capacity. And so the current 963 policy really does create a lot of legwork that is really not relevant to selling and disposing of land bank lots. So when I started this process a while back, I really built up the goal to develop a disposition policy that includes already identified successful models around the state, but is organization specific to the city of Grand Rapids. We are the second largest city in the state, so it's really important that we keep that in mind and build it intentionally. So I did scan the field for Horizon topics to be leaders in the Land Bank Authority practices and values. This included going to the Michigan Land Bank Association meetings, building the relationships with other land banks around the state, and really diving into their policies and asking a lot of questions. Some of them I'm sure have my email flagged. Looking at these other disposition policies around the state, I really wanted to identify metrics of success. So, the Michigan Land Bank Authority identifies the ones that I used because they are longstanding and established programs, and they have a demonstrated benefit to their local communities, and I'm hoping to bring that here too. The models that I looked at include Calhoun County, Kalamazoo, Ingham, Genesee, and then of course I did still look at Detroit. They have a lot of amazing programs that I would love to somehow pilot here at some point down the line. On top of that, we leaned into the city policies, including the one I've been talking about, the disposition of city land, the administrative policy for land transfer policies, and then the quiet title policy that has been developed in consultation with our legal team. So, talked a lot about this, but the rationale for this specific disposition policy is that it's going to provide the clear guidance to the Land Bank Authority, regardless of who sits on this board. It's going to embed equity, the value of equity, into the Land Bank Authority policies and guidelines, and it will be a leading factor in terms of how we continue to build out our toolbox. It's going to identify opportunities for community engagement as well as collaboration with the many stakeholders that our department and our city have throughout the area. And then, of course, as I said, we've been working alongside various departments, including planning and assessors, and we're really trying to seek those efficiencies in this streamlined policy. So, diving into it. So section 1 is really around, well, it's section 2 technically. Section 1 is definitions, but section 2 is really around property disposition. And this is going to be the impact of the property, really looking at what the short and long-term neighborhood and community development plans are going to be and how this is going to benefit. Just a reminder that all of our current lots are vacant. We have no structures on anything. This disposition policy was built with the assumption that at some time down the line, we will have structures and we will be disposing of those in various ways. So this is future thinking as well. We listed the priorities for property use as well as for transferees and the qualifications that we'll look into within that. And this is, once again, I utilized best practices from around the state, looking at various policies and really diving in and asking, how they got to their rankings and how we can utilize them here. We also are including covenants, conditions, and restrictions. We know that we have a lot of development organizations, whether it's nonprofit or others, in this area, and we want to make sure that we're going to be attaching these covenants to that so that if they're saying they're going to be affordable, we're going to ensure that that follows through. We also don't want individuals or organizations buying lots and sitting on them and waiting. We have a $550 revenue with this, and so for 5 years we get 50% of the property taxes. We really want them to, if they buy these lots, to move quickly to start that development so that we can ultimately start getting some more revenue. On top of this, it takes into consideration some of the rehabilitation and zoning requirements within the city and the existing departments. Another reminder is that 60% of the lots that we received are currently parcels that are considered non-buildable or side lots. So we did build in a side lot program ultimately. The goal on this is ultimately to contemplate maximizing the use of the property, including the ability to combine non-buildable side lots and parcels with an adjacent property to return them to taxable status. There are a few of these lots that are really located in between a lot of residential property. Our property maintenance can't even access them without crossing a private land. And so, we're trying to build tools that we've seen across the state to allow side lots to essentially be absorbed into neighboring properties and adjacent properties to bring them back to a taxable status. And, there might be possibilities for some more programs on that. So the side lot program really does talk about the transfers, what qualified properties are, transferees. We talk a little bit about the pricing and then the additional requirements that may be taken into account if they're going to be absorbed or if there are multiple neighbors looking into a lot or something such as that, and it needs to be split among many. I will say the goal that is in this presentation is considered kind of a friendly amendment because the goal that is in the disposition policy is a little more vague than this. So I would like to make sure that that language is updated to include what is in the slide. The remaining sections really are the administrative piece, consideration upon transfers. Ultimately, we're going to look at selling these around fair market value, or eventually we're going to be looking at what costs go into these properties and averaging that to figure out how we're going to sell and what price point we're going to. It also has specific considerations regarding nonprofits and governmental entities. I don't necessarily anticipate governmental entities looking to take ours, but in case they do, we have those policies written in, as well as what open market transfers are going to be. And this is generally at fair market value from other land banks that sell property. They usually don't sell them for much more. This is also going to take into account the approval of property transfers. This is a piece that is really going to lay out what is going to need to be brought before the board for approval. Tax exempt transfers, if somebody is choosing to opt out of the 550, that's usually for side lots, but if they are looking to opt out of that, then we would need to bring it here, as well as if there are bulk sales. Otherwise, the executive director can expedite and move the other sales with report outs to the board at each board meeting. The other piece of this is the interpretation and revisions. As you notice within this policy, there is not an actual process defined. What this does is allows the executive director the authority to interpret and clarify policies with internal guidelines and administrative policies. So essentially, we can build out that process and build out some of these other processes and policies that are not necessarily impactful on the governance, but they are impactful on how we're actually going to be selling and moving these properties throughout the land bank. So it is going to allow the executive director, so Sarah for right now, whoever it may be down the line, to really flesh out what that policy is and what that process is going to be for the applications. Really all the pieces of it that are not explicitly laid out in this disposition policy. So the next steps, of course, as you just approved, eProperties is going to be our public clearinghouse. We are going to be sending them the contract, hopefully signed today, and get those up and listed. This should be live by April 15th. On top of that, I've already started drafting a lot of administrative policies, regarding the quiet title process, what an application process is going to be, all the pieces of it within application packets. We're drafting deed restrictions, developer agreements, the 550 exemption process, and the templates necessary, as well as any other administrative policies that are going to be brought before us. On top of that, I've been working with our communications team to build a community engagement strategy, looking at what public meetings we can attend and how to build feedback loops within the city to really ensure that residents' voices are continuously heard. And then eventually down the line, we are going to have to build an acquisition strategy. Right now we have the properties from the state land bank, but eventually we are going to be intentional and look at acquisition in a meaningful way. And so we're hoping that we'll be able to build that strategy down the line as well. With that, I will open it up for comments, questions, recommendations. Happy to help.
Yeah, thank you, Doug. I just have two quick things. One, can you confirm that the disposition policy as written has gone through legal review?
So we have not had feedback yet from our counsel, Bloom Sluggett. So yeah, as of right now, no, it has not. No. We sent it over. We just have not received their feedback yet.
Okay, and then just second question, kind of build on that. I believe I heard you say there's some other language that you'd like to add to this policy that was on your slides?
Yeah, let me see, it is section 3.1 that has the goal listed within the policy. I am looking to update that language to include the language that is in this slide around the side lot program goal. And that was a request directly from the assessor's department, should there ever come a time that they have to defend anything in court.
So I guess to put a finer point on that, I think what's before us as an action item is to approve this policy. However, if we're looking at forthcoming changes in the near future and we still need legal review, I personally, I'm not sure if this is the time for us to actually approve the policy, but I'm open to other comments and discussion on that.
I would agree with that, Mr. Chair. I would agree with that assessment, that maybe we have to table this until the legal review is done.
Thank you. Thanks for this presentation, Doug. I was just thinking I probably needed to print this out and share it with my colleagues. So I wanted to come back to that conversation point of the March 11th meeting, and Doug, you were in attendance as well. I think that it's not a conflict, but I think it's a push and pull of sort of like where the land bank could go and what needs to happen right now. And so I hope I represented this body as best as I could to say that this body was sort of agnostic in terms of like, we absolutely wanted to continue to be the Land Bank Authority Board. I don't think anybody here said we have to do this and we were asked to do it and there's no change. So I confirmed that. What I also did share was, just as we just approved that last item, there still is work that needs to be done. And like, the work of government doesn't stop. So we have to figure out, we can't just say, well, we want to have, and I would say, again, the majority of my colleagues seem to be very interested in the acquisition policy and sort of what that looks like in the future, as well as community engagement. I think where we landed was, let's focus on the things that we can do right now, which are more like the building blocks of a land bank authority that are not necessarily the acquisition, because the acquisition strategy. But then we also wanted staff to be part of that community engagement. You know, we've just seen these projects. So how do we connect to the CIAs? How do we connect to emerging developer programs? How are we making sure that, you know, this piece of like, we're going to the assessor, we're going to planning. I think that was my overall concern. And so I think we landed in a good spot that we're asking this body to continue to do this work until about, what do we say, July, essentially, the beginning of the fiscal year. And so since we're only meeting every other month, that sort of means that, you know, there's only like 2 more meetings that we have. And so I think that was well received. Again, the question was, we don't necessarily have a certain budget, but to your point, Doug, you know, this is where we would try to, hopefully that strategy of that future board would be like, what is that strategy to be able to add more? You know, are we connecting it? I know some folks on the body, on the city commission body would like it perhaps to pull things from like affordable housing fund or other things. That remains to be seen. So I guess what I'm saying is, I believe we're not in a limbo anymore, but we're in this like period of what do we need to, what can we help do? Because the staff, obviously, this sounds like a lot of things that, you know, has been going on, and so I'm appreciative of that. So that's that feedback. Would you add anything to that, Doug, from that meeting with commission that day?
No, I think that like Commissioner Sassi said, they acknowledge the, essentially building that infrastructure, you know, and so I think that there was that clear appreciation for that work, despite what changes may come.
And I think we didn't necessarily talk about this with commission, but of course there was a subcommittee that was meeting. And so, you know, I think the question would be, do we want to commit time and energy to that again as we go through these pieces, particularly, you know, kind of hearing what's on the floor about the legal review. And so knowing that this is March, the next meeting wouldn't be till May, and then it would be July. Is there an appetite to perhaps take this disposition policy into, you know, sort of a subcommittee work as we wait to hear back from the attorney? Because I think those are realistic, I think, questions. I would also, so that's the city commission. I will add one. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to add one
Sure.
more thing that I heard. So I re-listened to the March 11th meeting this morning because I was not there. And the other thing that I felt like I heard was, at least from the mayor's standpoint, very much interest in working within the Economic Development Department, similar to how the BRA board operates. And so including me as executive director. So I just want to, that was another
Yeah,
item.
I think we got to a good sort of middle ground, I'll say, because I think the previous meeting was like, we need to be totally separate. We're going to hire somebody. And then there were some who were like, no, it needs to stay on here. And I'm like, hey, this body. And so I think we landed in that good middle ground of how do we maximize, which is to utilize folks like you who and Doug and others in economic development. So I feel good about where it landed. I'm going to stop there and say I did get an email regarding the disposition policy just yesterday. I did talk to Sarah yesterday. I chatted with Doug a little bit. And this came from one of our nonprofit developers. So I'll put this on the table maybe in terms of this postponement, right? It's postponement if it's at a later date. I always forget. And so one of the nonprofit developers reached out and talked about Section 2, where we talk about the priorities for property use. Obviously, you know, Doug shared the affordable housing as the top priority. And then they were concerned that section 2.3 shows nonprofit organizations as fourth in the line in terms of those priority transferees. And then obviously we just heard a nonprofit, we just approved that in the last item. And so I wanted to bring that discussion piece, and I know, you both seem very open, like, yeah, let's just bring it up at the meeting, talk through that. And I haven't talked to this nonprofit developer in full disclosure in person, but I did want to bring in that feedback. So I'm going to stop talking, see if anybody else has anything. Thank you.
Wasn't it, I don't know if it's the same meeting, but I thought Commissioner Perdue said that she wanted individuals to take advantage of this more so than nonprofits. I mean, she wanted to do the startup people and, and allow them the access to this more affordable way of doing things. So is that where that came from?
I do think that was a fair comment. I should remember because she sits next to me a little bit more. Yes, I think that was certainly the piece, and I think that's sort of that discussion on the emerging developer. I would say, probably for the city, I think like many things, it's not just one tool that we use, right? And so I think there was a lot of discussion that day about this land bank can do all these things. I'm like, great, I would love one of these that can do all these things for me. But like, what can happen right now? I don't even think, I think even going to to my colleagues and saying, a reminder about the side lots, because I think that was a very early on discussion, probably last year, because it's 171 properties, right? So how many properties is it?
We have roughly 100.
Roughly 100. I don't know why I keep saying. So 70% of that side lots, right? So, but I think, again, knowing that most of them are in the third ward. So yes, I would say my personal thought is we have good relationships and we've seen good projects from individual developers and we've seen good projects from nonprofit developers, right? And to your point, Doug, in terms of the timing of who might be able to hit the ground running a little bit faster, it might be folks who have some more infrastructure. And then how do you balance that with individuals who we certainly want to see that? So to me, and that's probably where the difference is it's not just one individual way of development that I would want to see us prioritize.
Is it necessary to prioritize?
It's one of those that when we talk about being intentional and building equity into this infrastructure, a frequent fear that I'm hearing from residents and individuals in the community they're fearful that it's going to become a first come, first serve program, and that the development organizations, whether it's nonprofit, for-profit, or otherwise, are going to come in, scoop up these properties, and there's not going to be anything left for residents. And I don't necessarily view that as a giant fear, but this is a way to really kind of build that intent in. I'll also say the ranking is for prioritization, not exclusion. And so, within that, I've heard the concerns from nonprofit, and looking at what is ranked above nonprofits. It's emerging developers within EDD programs, legacy building, and then home ownership. And so it's not excluding nonprofits by any means.
Can I add one other thing, Doug, there? And I think I'd have to go back and look at the policy again. I think this developer was like, oh, well, the nonprofit or the emerging developer, there's no requirement for them to necessarily create it to be affordable. And so I think in terms of, kind of the requirements we have, I think we could build those pieces in too. So then to your point, we kind of have, I like how you said it's prioritization, not exclusivity. We also recognize there's a scarcity mentality with this because there's only so many properties, right? So yeah. I thought I would just add that in too.
Thank you. So Doug, well done. And Sarah, I mean, it's been, it's been a huge lift. And we want to continue to be helpful so long as we're populating this board. So I guess to that end, recognizing you're getting the brunt of calls and you know, how come we can't do this already? I would just hope that, you know, our leadership in this city could help manage some of that with expectations, right? Like some patience. We need some patience. We need process in place for our team to actually respond effectively. And, you know, to get there, we just need to all have a little patience with this process. I think, given the work that you've put into this and the structure that you've created for this, that this is going to be an amazing process, you know, once this thing's finalized. You know, my earlier comments, I think really I just want to be mindful of, you know, making sure that we're procedurally handling the approvals, you know, correctly. And if in that interim, there's an opportunity to further update this and get it closer to what you think helps you be more successful, I want to make sure we do that. So to that end, I don't, unless I'm wrong, maybe Chad, you could weigh in on this, but I don't know that we need to wait to have a formal meeting to approve the policy. Perhaps that could be an email vote once we've confirmed that legal counsel has signed off on it, or I don't know.
Another
Could it just
suggestion.
be subject to?
I was just going to say that. Could we approve it subject to the change in the language
Yes,
and
please.
the one screen that he mentioned, and the approval of
Absolutely.
legal counsel?
Okay, sure, contingent on
And
that.
that way, it just happens, and we're not holding things up like
That would be
the
helpful
mayor was
for
concerned.
staff,
He's
yes.
so concerned about the timing of all of this. You know, if we can make it in a way that it gets done, we just would feel more comfortable if a few of these things were changed and we had legal
Sure.
backing. Does
Oh, I
that sound
appreciate-
good?
Absolutely, I appreciate that. Yeah. Okay, any other comments or discussion here? Oh.
Amended your motion like that to approve updates.
I think it was section 3.1 to the language that was on the screen.
Support that amendment?
But we also need to add legal to that, Chad. Yep, okay.
Yes, I did.
Can I add one piece in here before the amendment?
Turn on your mic.
Oh, sorry, thank you. One piece and before the amendment. I'm just sitting here thinking about, I mean, I know this job is not, like, city commission is like you're telling people more no than you're telling them yes, I'll be honest. But I think, you know, I think about that project we just saw in Brownfield from past commissioner and sort of the development group. Like, how do I, when I think about prioritization and I think about, like, we do small business loans, it's a lot of times a matrix that helps me decide, like, hey, this is like something that I would think it should move forward, because it not only is this one thing, but it's all these other things as well. The thing I liked about that, I liked about that project is, like, it is the mixed use, there's other developers coming into it, that goes back to some of the other, I think they're trying to create this opportunity for more people to be into it. And so I think it's a good idea to certainly have the legal review, especially I think in these times that we're in, like, just having that piece is super helpful. I also wonder if there's a way to give to what I hear you saying, Doug, is like that prioritization and almost like a matrix or a review that says, these are things that, from an emerging developer, why we would. So then when we have those discussions with individuals about the community engagement, it's really, there's not winners or losers. We're looking for this, like, creativity. We're looking for individuals to think about how they might put these projects together. So I think about it a matrix, or I'm not an educator, but like some sort of overall like rubric of like these are building blocks that make this project sort of have a priority. So anyways, I wanted to add that to this so that we can give some more clarity to individuals. It's not you, or it's not a binary decision, so.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We've talked about that within the department, and I think there certainly pros and cons with that, but when you're trying to prioritize, you need something to look at. And so from my perspective, I think that's something we'll get to.
Okay.
And I would want to lean on the policy and and multiple priorities being hit in order to help us get going here, because I feel like rubrics can have unintended consequences where you have applicants just trying to back into what you're, right, like, what you're after in maybe a negative way.
And then can I add really quick, I'm good to support the amendment and what's on the table. We probably have some of that from the Affordable Housing Fund too.
Sure.
So we can pull, like, again, I think I saw that we're pulling things in from the city. Let's take that into that process as well if it exists. So, thank you.
Yeah, and that can be an amendment, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, it gives
certainly.
you time to give it more thought.
Certainly.
It can be amendment. I just have one question. On the side lots that you're thinking about, maybe the neighbors would take it, are you expecting them to pay for it and then pay taxes on it?
So,
I mean, what's in it for me?
I mean,
You know?
a hypothetical situation, because we don't have anything right now. The City Commission last year changed the zoning laws around ADUs. There is the potential that a homeowner could absorb a side lot, build an ADU. Because as the side lot is, it's not buildable, but maybe within their lot, it could become buildable. The other piece is land banks around the state, some of them sell side lots for $50. And so then once your property is reassessed, you have that larger property, you have greater size, and so there is going to be that change in the tax roll. Oftentimes those side lots are also exempt from the 550, so that we are not getting that property tax, as revenue, but it's also because they're not profitable from our perspective.
Well, not only, I don't know about the taxes thing, but I was thinking that if you got it onto the tax rolls, it means that you get the taxes, but you also get to take back the maintenance costs that you're paying to keep it up in the meantime. So, I mean, you guys figure that out? I was just trying to figure out what was in it for me to take on a side lot.
Right. Well, it's one of those that if say a neighbor did absorb a side lot, we would only receive the 550 on that side lot, not their entire property. And so it would be minimal, if anything. And I'll also just, going back to Commissioner Sassi's comment, I will just say we are in conversations with the Office of Equity and Engagement, and we're planning to sit down with them and discuss further after this policy is implemented a little more. So hopefully, down the line.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. I thought that was a great discussion. Chad, do you need to read back the amended motion for us?
Motion to recommend the passage of the plan distribution policy with the updated language in section 3.1 contingent on legal approval.
Great, thank you. So do I have a motion to approve the amended motion?
So moved.
Okay, I think I said that right, maybe not.
We have to do the amendment, then we have to go back.
Oh,
Right? We need an amendment vote.
am I?
You said it right.
Okay, all right. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next.
We need a motion on
We need-
the
Then
first.
now
It's a vote on the amended motion.
So you need a vote on the first motion.
We first voted on the amendment, now we're voting on the
Amended.
amended motion.
Okay, do we need to restate that motion?
It's good.
No.
I agree.
No. Okay,
I'll
so,
make a motion to approve the amended item number 3.
We already did that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think you're just amending the motion that's on the table, which has been done, so now we can just vote on that.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
okay. So then I will just say, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
That's okay.
That's always true.
Well, I guess I kind of started it, so I did it,
Yes, you
did it to myself, so. All right, thank you, Doug. Okay, other business.
I've got one more thing, unless anybody else does. One more thing, yes. So just new to the process, but we're as more of an agency-wide effort going through the budget right, at the city level. And it's my impression that with our authorities across the rest of the department, so Corridor Improvement Authorities, BRA, we come in April with our budgets. Because we don't have an April meeting, I'm offering that maybe we consider moving up the May one and having it in April, so that we can consider a budget for the Land Bank Authority, which we have in draft form. We discussed a bit with the chair and are candidly awaiting some of that larger process to roll out in order to be able to answer some just questions, right? The financing or the line items in the budget certainly rely to some degree on the general fund at this moment. At least that's my goal. And we're trying to figure that out with our Budget and Fiscal Services Office. So the goal there would be to go to April in order to go to Commission in May, in order to come back to the Land Bank in June, which we don't have a meeting in June either. So I guess what I'm asking is that we consider an April meeting and then make a plan from there as we'll have more information.
What is the date that we would be looking at to get that in the April?
The same date as the BRA meeting.
Same schedule, just adding the topic of land bank.
Yeah, fine with me.
Does it make more sense to add a special meeting or add a meeting in April in the event that there are other potential agenda items in the next couple of months that might come up? I suspect that wouldn't be a long addition to our time anyways, and I wouldn't, if for whatever reason legal analysis takes until May or there are other things, other potential transfers.
Sure. So instead
I wouldn't want a longer gap than
Sure.
between April and whenever the next meeting would be.
Yes, that makes more sense. So we would keep
Keep the
May,
current
just in case.
schedule and
Okay,
just
got
add a one agenda item meeting
Yes.
in April.
Yes. Does that sound good to everybody?
Makes sense.
I will say right now, that is spring break, so.
It's so late.
Yeah. All right. The first full week in April. Maybe it will just be me.
No, the 23rd.
Oh, we are doing the 23rd.
Yeah,
I'm
jet lagged.
I am jet lagged.
I think it was like when she said move
Adding
up.
So
to our
that's
existing Brownfield date.
2 weeks after spring break.
Just don't put that in there.
Okay. That's all
Does that
right.
make sense? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Thanks for thinking ahead, Sarah.
Thanks for the consideration.
No action from us needed to have the April meeting? Okay, great.
Just have to publicize it.
Excellent. Any other business? Okay. Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.
Here, I thought I would.
Thanks for helping with that last one. That was, yeah,
Good discussion.
yeah, I think so, yeah.